What's going now?
Are we recording?
We are not recording yet.
Hit the record button, buddy.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Flying by the seat of our pants, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 000, Infinite Zeros, number 2 of the Contact Buzz podcast. As always, I am joined by my good friend Guillermo Garcia Zatamarina.
Hello.
And my other good friend Christopher Anderson. Mr. Anderson, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fucking amazing.
Fantastic. I always mess this up. I'll get it right eventually. I should have thrown the company names in there as well. Guillermo from Acme Tea Company, Chris from California Terpene Extracts. Two of the best names in the game. That's what that's all about right there. We are not looking at the right note page. Oh, that's right. We're the podcast that sits around and talks about basically the ins and outs of cannabis, both the hemp and the marijuana side of things. We talk about everything from the chemical breakdowns of it to the uses to the political environment around it to
Foods,
literally
laws,
foods. We
dirty
spent a lot of time talking
underbelly
about
of the black
foods
market.
last episode. Black market, gray market, green market.
Right.
We're the podcast for all that good stuff. So, if you want to be in the know, here's where you go. Right? No, we'll have to work on that, but I think there's something there.
Yeah, that actually was pretty good.
Today's episode, we are talking about something called the Entourage Effect. Now, the way I understand it, that's when you and like 6 or 8 of your buddies, you know what I mean, like good friends and stuff, you go out, one of you gets to wear the glasses in the club while the other one, is kind of, they all stand around.
There's a wingman.
That's like your entourage, right? No?
Are we talking about that show that was on HBO?
Yeah.
The other
No,
Entourage.
we're talking about the Entourage Effect.
Yeah, Entourage Effect.
Okay.
So everybody
All right.
doesn't have to
Let's do
Google
it.
that real quick. Let's recap what the Entourage Effect is. And since you've got the book with the most notes in it, Chris, why don't you run with that one?
Well, you are a chemist too, so I guess that helps.
That's
yeah,
true.
you have a background in chemistry, so it definitely helps. So essentially the Entourage Effect is like the synergetic effect of like full spectrum, cannabinoids and terpenes and other, phytocannabinoids, like flavonoids, chlorophylls, vitamins, minerals, any kind of those things that are part of the whole, the whole plant. And so when you extract out the whole plant, or you're just even smoking cannabis flowers and stuff like that, you get, hundreds of chemicals all together that, interact within your, body. And your body is consistent of like your endocannabinoid system, like we were talking last time. And then it has like, a whole system of receptors that actually bind, with these different cannabinoids and different chemicals. And so you actually have like several different kinds of effects, like the pharmacokinetic entourage effect was when like 2 molecules like CBD or THC actually affect each other, like the levels within, your bloodstream or the levels within even the plant itself. And so these effects together though, so like CBD, like a lot of times lowers the like high effect that you get from THC. So a lot of people say if you're having an anxiety attack because you think you've smoked too much THC, you can smoke CBD or use the CBD product and it'll actually lower the effect of the THC on you. And then there's also like a direct pharmacodynamic entourage effect, which is like when 2 molecules try to actually like bind to the same receptor. And so when one molecule binds to like, the endocannabinoid receptor, the other molecule now cannot attach to that same receptor. So that way it affects, the effectiveness in your body. So, and then there's also an indirect effect, which is essentially when a molecule like is trying to bind to a receptor that doesn't have to do with anything like another one. So essentially this one will actually bind to like a different receptor than the other molecule. So you can actually have 2 different bindings at the same time, which creates, again, another effect.
Okay, I figured out how this episode's going to go. I'm going to basically play the idiot because I've got a lot of questions that I'm sure a lot of our listeners also have as well there. The first one is like, so when we're talking about receptors and we're talking about the chemicals, like I didn't do good chemistry stuff. Science is a foreign language almost a little bit to me. So the way I understand it is like, okay, so you have your chemical, your THC chemical, your CBD chemical, whatever the terpene chemical is, and then the associated receptor that's in your body, right? But that receptor could receive different chemicals of similar shapes, I guess would be a way to kind of frame that.
That's the best way to put it.
Right.
Essentially, you have like a shape, and then you have another shape. The receptor like has like, say it's like a square shape,
Right.
And then so the molecule, like, so a lot of terpenes actually are kind of square shaped. They're, in a sense. And so they'll come and they'll bind to that, like, because they fit. It's
right.
Like,
but then
they
that
call it the
blocks
locking
parking
key model.
space.
But yeah, exactly. It's a parking space.
Right.
You know, so they fit in really well.
Molecule comes along and it's got no place to park. And so it just ends up cruising on its merry way.
Exactly. And then it has to either find a new parking space, or if there's none, it'll just keep free floating until it's, a reuptake by your liver
or kicked out of the body. Like you don't belong here. Okay. So yeah, there we go. That's good. A good, I think, visual way to kind of picture that.
What's another visual way to picture it too is just to add to this, when we talk about the endocannabinoid system, for people to understand that's the basically you have the locks designed for these specific keys.
Exactly.
And that's the thing that people kind of
it's like that.
Don't think about
Netflix show with the keys in the back of the head.
I haven't seen it yet, but
I don't know what it's called. But
imagine that. What if a lot of people that are suffering these different ailments are really deficient in cannabinoids, specific cannabinoids, or specific, let's call them vitamins and minerals and plant extracts. Mental illness, in some cases, I believe, has to do with vitamin deficiencies or the brain not producing the chemicals correctly.
A perfect example
in the right amounts
of an actual, like, known mental illness that is directly linked to a chemical imbalance is schizophrenia. And so people who are schizophrenic normally have, I believe, too much dopamine released in their system. And that creates
I have no idea.
The hallucinogenic effects that they have, that they see things and hear things. And so
I thought it was a deficiency, actually. Like they didn't eat enough bananas or something like that. Where
I definitely know it's not that.
Isn't that kind of how like Chantix works too for smoking? Like it actually goes in and occupies the nicotine receptors within the brain.
Yes.
So the nicotine chemical has no place to park. And your body eventually starts to wean itself off of the dependency of the chemical because what's parked there is benign. Well, unless you've ever used it and lived through those dreams.
Crazy suicidal dreams.
If
you die, let your doctor know immediately.
Right. Brain chemistry is a trip. So yeah, so getting back to it, when we're talking about the different cannabinoids, the different terpenes, the different chemicals essentially within the plant, it's really important, I guess, for breeders or processors to find those combinations, right?
Sorry, I got distracted for a second. What was the question?
I saw you doing some research over there.
Yeah, that's why I got distracted.
Yeah,
for a second.
so knowing the potential crossover, like for example, outdoor cultivation, we have something called nutrient block, and obviously you know what that is as well. The plant, like I think it's potassium or something, can get in there and block, or magnesium can block it, and it doesn't get enough potassium because both of those chemicals are kind of similar, and so it can kind of
well, you have the
block out
different
nutrients,
the
right?
channels that they flow through with.
Right. So same basic, more or less same basic concept there. Again, I've studied no chemistry, but when we're talking about
you do that so well, RJ. It just flows.
I'll get my redneck out here soon. So when you're talking about them, their terpenes and them, their profiles, what you want to make sure is that you. No, okay, I'll stop. But no. No, we've danced around this enough. As an extractor, because you work with this stuff at a chemical level, right?
Yeah.
So how do you look at that and figure out or best figure out which ones more of, less of? How do you develop that recipe, I guess, is what it would be.
I mean, a lot of that has to do with the genetics and how it's grown. Like we talked last time with like the environment that it's grown in, the genetics of it, how well you can express those genetics. Like the terpene profiles that come out of a lot of these plants, are
sunlight.
Yeah, it has to do with environment.
Right.
And like you could have
cold,
even clones in the same essential environment, and they'll still come out slightly different. even though it's the exact same genetics.
Sure.
That just has to do with, it's like nature versus nurture. You can nurture them the same, but nature's still going to take over and change slightly.
Are we to the point yet, do you think, where we could take a look at, let's say you tested a plant, you got the exact terpene profile off of it, that you could predictively or that you could predictively tell what that plant's effects would be without actually smoking it or imbibing it at all?
Yeah, actually, that's a big thing that they're trying to do. Like, I don't know if you guys follow Leafly much, but
Yeah.
Leafly, when you look at a lot of the strains now, it shows more of the terpene profile of the strain, and then it tells you the effects that it should create. And so when you actually like look into a lot of the different terpenes, which terpenes are just these volatile, chemicals essentially that create the smells and flavors and stuff.
Essential oils.
Yeah, essentially the essential oils.
Essential
and
oils.
it's not just of cannabis; it's of all plants make terpene, profiles.
Right,
actually,
there's limonene in lemons and limonene in cannabis as well.
Actually, limonene's kind of funny. It's more in oranges than actual lemons.
Trippy.
Yeah, it's a more bitter, citrusy like taste.
But pine is in pine.
Yeah, pine
needles and pine wax.
I mean, if you actually look at the word terpene itself, it actually comes from turpentine, which came from trees. So
right. So for me, what I think is also interesting is that you mix the different terpenes together, or you have a plant that has multiple terpenes in it, and those are the recipes that give you these effects. Those are that to me is like the building blocks to for lack of a better term, high, right? Like those different characteristics from all those different strains, from a white widow to a super lemon haze to a green crack, all of them had a different high. And I think it was the terpene profiles of those, along with the THC levels that, because I've also had really, really high THC level flower, and it didn't get me any higher.
So that's a perfect example of, again, where this, entourage effect comes into play.
Right.
If you have, like, I can smoke pure THCA, which is, diamonds. We can purify it down, remove the terpenes all the way so it's just crystalline. And when you smoke that, it's not as pleasant as when you smoke with the, terpenes as well. So, when we do our diamonds,
and by pleasant, you're talking about flavor, obviously.
It's not just flavor.
But
I mean, yes, the flavor is definitely, it's the effect. The effect isn't there as much.
Right.
So, even though it's higher percentage THCA that you're smoking, which, is what most people think what you want to get high, it's not everything you want.
Right.
So you get a lot more beneficials from, with the terpenes as well. So that's why when we do our diamonds and everything, we don't just do straight diamonds. We do a 50-50 blend of the THCA, and then even our sauce still has a good amount of cannabinoids in it. So in the end, you're getting a really high percentage of THC, but you still have all the taste and all the other effects that come with it. Because even when you're extracting your plant, when it's producing, terpene profiles are normally between 1% and 5%.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's it. So even as the plant grows it, you're only going to get about 5% max.
Isn't that a trip? Such a small amount has such a
it creates so much effect
on it, right?
And so terpenes are also what people use in essential oils, like you were saying, for aromatics, for diffusers,
lavender, chamomile, rose.
All these are exact reasons why people
tea.
Exactly the flavors that come from them, the smells,
right.
The taste. And it's crazy, but when you think about it, because terpenes are so small and volatile that they actually pass through the blood-brain barrier really well, which means that when you smell something, it's crazy. But if you think back to a food smell from your past, and you smell it again, and it instantly triggers memories. Or if you smell a flower,
feelings,
exactly.
Right.
So that's where even just the smell of these terpenes create beneficial effects right off the bat, because they go straight into your olfactory system, which is your smell system, and it goes straight to your brain, and it goes right through your blood-brain barrier. There's nothing that needs to be filtered, and goes straight to your memories. Your brain knows those smells. They know those those effects that it creates.
And your body is waiting for it anyways because it has the endocannabinoid system. So something to think about, people. Something to think about, that it's not just THC. It's more than that.
or
It's-
CBD.
or
even.
CBD.
Well, on the
It's-
CBD side of things, you've got products now that are in its huge craze. Everybody's looking for that THC free product, right? They put it on big labels, they put it, all over the place, and everybody looks at that and thinks, oh, okay, well, it's THC free. It's definitely not going to show up in a drug test or anything else. Normal hemp isn't going to either. The full spectrum stuff isn't going to either. This is a marketing ploy essentially, but the only way that it's THC free is because they strip everything away from it. It's not just that they strip the THC; they strip literally everything, and it is a straight CBD isolate,
which
or
we feel
distillate, or
we feel may not be as effective.
well, no, because you don't have any of the terpene profile that's involved with it or anything.
And that brings up an interesting question.
So we can all. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, so let's say we processed out, right? Chris and I were working on a recipe, a custom recipe, right? And we've isolated these terpenes specifically from multiple plant sources. And so we have this kind of like chemistry set where we can pull a little bit of myrcene or a little bit of pinene or limonene or whatever it is, humulene. We just create, Dr. Frankenstein this thing, and we mix it with CBD and THC, right, and CBG, and create this concoction, this elixir. We technically are experimenting with creating medicines or creating a product that is designed to do something. It's designed to have an effect in the majority of people who try it with very little side effects. No, you're not going to die. But did you die?
But did you die, bro?
But did you die? You're not going to die. And it's safe in the sense that you're not going to.
But did you die?
You're not going to. I shouldn't have said that.
Honestly, to go into that, actually, did you guys hear about the first death caused by CBD though? Just happened.
No, I didn't hear about that.
Okay, so
Oh, was it an overdose?
So what happened wasn't so much of an overdose off of the CBD itself. They had a drug interaction with a specific medicine that they were taking, and CBD blocked a specific enzyme that drug needed to be processed, and so they end up overdosing off the drug because CBD bound to that enzyme, it stopped that process, and so they end up having too much of the drug that they were taking in their system that caused the problem.
So it was a side effect.
Essentially.
So there you go. So in specific cases, and not everybody's the same.
And this goes back to the entourage effect, though. Sometimes they're not always beneficial. So for someone like myself, even, I don't like a lot of, we talked about the terpene pinene, but pinene itself creates like a kind of a anxiety effect in me. And so for some people, like that anxiety, I cannot believe you picks up the sirens like that.
Dude.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Seriously. The ghetto bird is literally flying over our head. That's awesome. Street cred.
Wait till they start the announcements. Sir, please come out of the house. Everybody stay in your house. There is a suspect on the loose. We're looking for a male approximately 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
So going back to it, that pinene creates like an anxiety effect in me. And so there's, it's kind of where modern medicine's coming into play with the, personalized medicine.
Right.
So personalized medicine is more of like knowing your genetics and what you're like deficient of and what you need and stuff like that. So that's where personalized medicine comes in. So for me, myself, I know certain terpenes are like create effects on myself that I don't like.
Right.
And so you kind of have to know, if you're taking a medicine, this is why it's like good to talk to your doctor about if you're going to be trying to do a CBD product or a THC product, the possible drug interactions. And that's what sucks is like because there's so little research on the health effects of some of these things like CBD, THC, CBN, CBG. They still don't know like, what possible drug interactions might be happening. So the more and more that we talk about this and educate each other and like the world, the better it is that
it benefits everybody.
Yeah. That the less likely that we're going to have more possible CBD overdoses.
Well, so in the industry, what I've seen is that, back in the day, it was like you hoarded all the information, you hoarded all the growing secrets. You didn't tell anybody if you were successful. It was like your your trademark or your
Cutthroat black market.
Well, no, it was
piracy.
just kind of like that was your reputation, right? Like you didn't want to.
But you also have to keep it a lot more secret back then too, because like you were saying, it was
didn't
black
want your
market.
right.
You didn't want everybody
Your
knowing
neighbor
that
rattling
you're
you out, right? But now I feel like this industry is like about sharing and about collectively like learning, all of us, and expressing the education in a way, in a positive way, and a lot of people cooperating. And so I think that's really awesome, and I'm hope that that's going to help accelerate it faster
it
than
definitely
other
already
industries.
has,
Right.
with like even the CBD production and stuff like that. It's crazy to say this, but social media, specifically Instagram and stuff like that, has pushed a lot of that, because again, people are constantly posting what they're doing,
Right.
and they're showing
Instagram,
the
that's
world.
that platform where that company Acme Tea is located at Acme Tea. And what was the other one?
What's Instagram?
California terpene.
California terpene, California terpene extracts, right? Or no, California terpene.
I think it's just California terpene is when it shows.
At
I don't
California
think it put
terpene.
the whole thing.
And at Acme Tea on Instagram. Anyways, you were saying?
So the other thing is, like,
Good one, RJ.
I don't know if you guys follow some of the forums, but a huge thing of this is how I, and actually a lot of the people I work with, learned a lot of this information that we know. Like some of, like, I mean, let alone like my, from school and stuff like that, and a lot of the stuff I learned from school, which is like where this all kind of joins together. But if you go into the forum Future 4200, that's 4200, go on that forum. It's just all the people in the industry who are the pioneers in some of this, like, techniques, some of the like filtration systems. These are also some of the people who are creating like some of the machines. Like, so, I mean, if you actually follow the guy, like, you'll see that he works with like precision extracts. He works with like big companies like Delta Separations. He works with a ton of farms like throughout the industry, like both on the CBD and THC side. And these are just forums of people going on there and like talking to each other, and just like I was saying, the information now is being spread freely because nobody's trying to hide things. Like, we all know the science behind a lot of it now, and it's going to come out no matter what. So like nobody's trying to hide it. We're all trying to support each other. We're all trying to push for like the better things. And like that's actually where, like, a lot of the better products have come out, because people will call out like a company that's trying to start
Trash.
Yeah, exactly. They'll call them out because they know, like, hey, that's bullshit. Like, you're bullshitting us.
Well, just look at the strength and the potency that's been available in the market just over the last like 6 to 7 years. I mean, just in every sensory, you've seen things that are 30 something plus percent, on the bud on a regular basis now. A few years ago, like, you didn't really get it tested or whatever, but like that wasn't there. That potency wasn't there. More people are breeding, more people are developing, more breakthroughs.
I think the breeding has gone the wrong way, though.
I
30% isn't.
But that's what the selling point. That's what they figured out. Everybody buys it now based off the percentage of potency. That's how they can price it. This is top shelf.
Yeah, because you can't smell 20, it anymore.
Right. You can't do anything with it anymore.
I definitely agree with that. The higher percentage stuff normally goes for more, but that's where, like, again, where like the old market, you used to be able to go into a dispensary and you'd be able to, open a jar and smell like, okay, this smells good. Like, I like the way it looks. And you get to smell all the different kinds. And now it's just like literally packaging. Like, and all the like recreational legal dispensaries, at least, packaging is what people go off of. Like, one of my close friends, she is huge into packaging. And so that's because that's all she can go off of. So if they have nice packaging, she expects them to have nice quality stuff. And she's, pretty consistent with like some of the things, but it's like even the pricing, like she went, and I don't know if you guys know what Connected is, but one of the big, legal companies that sells like kind of high-end cannabis is Connected. And they had that, like I said last time, that $80, an eighth stuff. And she went and bought it, and like, yeah, it was good, but it's just like, you're going off a name brand and packaging now.
Right.
Not like it used to be where it's like the quality was there, the smells, like, everything's changing.
Right.
And so that's where, like, you're saying like the breeding has changed. Instead of like focusing on genetics or whatever else they're focusing on. Now they're just trying to
terpene
push
profiles.
exactly. That's being, but the cool thing is with testing, it does show that. But again, people don't understand these things yet still. So like
Right.
they don't know what to
The
expect.
farmer hopefully does, and I think that there's really good farmers out there who are really paying attention to these, and they're growing what they like, they're growing what works for them as well. But the terpenes make such a difference, and I think there's essentially we had talked about it before, is that like that palate that gets developed over time, and it's just experience all these different strains, and it would be the same for, let's say, beers. To find the right beer, you literally have to go out drinking for a while. Like you got to go out drinking maybe for a couple years, and you got to try beers from all these different countries to really know what's the beer.
Until you get the IPA, and then your palate's ruined.
You get a dirty rotten bastard beer ale or something.
Oh,
Arrogant bastard.
The arrogant
Arrogant
bastards.
bastard.
See, the sad thing is, before I quit drinking, that's like where I was at. Just nothing but IPAs, because my palate had gotten so destroyed by them that it just like
I feel like it's one of those things that it's like a spice. You have it, you pepper it in every so often in the roll, but like you don't drink it all the time.
see, that's where I screwed up when I was young. I spent years just drinking IPAs.
Well, you can get it back.
I spent 2.5 years in San Diego, so it's like,
Oh yeah,
what do you
IPA
expect is
capital
gonna
of
happen? Yeah,
California.
exactly. What do you expect is gonna
we got
happen?
it nitroed or we got it not on nitro. Which way you like it, buddy? I'll always take an IPA nitroed if I can get it.
It depends. So one of the, just going off topic for a second, one of the best
There are
beers
no
I've ever
topics.
actually had was from Belching Beaver. I went to one of their tasting rooms, and they only had a small keg of it, and it was a chili mango IPA, and it was so amazing. Yeah, sometimes I was
Chili
drinking-
mango IPA.
Yeah, it was a chili mango, and it was just like, I don't even know how to explain it. Just the aromas, the terpene profile,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
flavonoids, everything that was coming out of it was just so amazing.
You start talking cider with me. I'll be down for a good cider, like a nice, complicated, layered, flavored, dry.
Yeah, we made some wine this year too,
Hmm?
Is
and
it CBD infused?
Not yet.
so not
We
yeah.
should. Let's
Turns
do
out
it.
that doesn't have to be done right at the time when you're making it, but
No,
definitely not.
so we went. Let me just tell you the story. And when we talk about terpenes, and we also talk about like ripeness and sugars in these plants and fruits. Well, so
Oh, you should have put some of these diamonds on.
our Jedi
Mhm.
Master Chris,
Next time.
his name's Chris, and Jan, both of them,
The
have been
Jedi
making these
Masters.
wines over the years, and these genetics I think are French, right?
I don't know.
I wanna say
He's
they're
got a few
French.
different types in that vineyard, though.
He also has a few different types of yeasts, and anyway, it's really cool. He's totally into it, and we learned a lot from him. And so he picked the grapes, and he was even waiting because he wanted to get them at the right time. And so he has this scope where he can look at the color and see the band and where the sugars are at, and measure when to pick the grapes,
Right.
similar to a cannabinoid test in the field for us. And so he'd picked the grapes when he thought there should have been picked for the flavors that he was going for, and then it sat for a few weeks. The vineyard sat for a little bit. There was still a lot of grapes, and
Just sitting there feeding the bees.
the bees and the birds were having at it, and we were like,
Wait, whoa. What are we talking about? Bees and birds, man.
so we were like, dude, we should make some wine, man. Can what do we want to do? And Chris is like, yeah, go for it, man. Just go out there and get some buckets. And so we went out there very late in the harvest. I mean, these were
There's
some
actually a French name for it. I can't remember what it is.
grapes.
But yeah,
It's sweeter though.
right.
it's supposed to be, yeah.
And
Darker
so
the berry, the sweeter the juice.
right. And so we were basically battling off bees and like just picking what we could that was still left.
Dude,
There
it was a trip because like the birds would go in first and they'd peck at the grape, right? And so they'd open up the grape a little bit and they'd eat like some of the inside. And then the bees would come in and they'd like finish scooping out the inside of the grape. But you'd have this like hollow grape sitting there. So at night, the bees would all crawl in there, and that's where they'd sleep, right?
Wow.
And so we'd be there, and we'd try to go in the morning because the bees are dormant, right? But they're in the bundles. You know what I'm saying? And so like you have to kind of still be careful. And then as the sun was rising, it was coming over and warming up the field. Like the bees would just start coming to life, like almost like a little wave of these little buzzy little fuckers coming towards you as you're trying to like cut the grapes out and get them out of the field.
Yeah.
Fill up the buckets.
So it was a trip. And anyways, same grapes, harvested different times, produced two different types of wine, or I'm sorry, the same type of wine, but two different flavor profiles from the wine. And so we're interested to see how ours came out when we go back up to the farm in a little bit. And it's been sitting.
Supposedly there's already been a tasting, and it's very promising.
Yeah.
So actually, speaking of that, we can actually like transition really well into another topic about harvesting cannabis at the right time, because
the
ripening process.
The ripening process changes quite a bit. So like what they call the mother cannabinoid is CBG.
Mm-hmm.
So CBG is actually like the kind of like the fork in the road for THC and CBD. And so it's actually for other cannabinoids as well, but those are like the main ones that we normally talk about. So that fork in the road though is like where if you harvest cannabis early, it'll still be CBG. But if you harvest it like at the right time, you'll get THC or CBD, depending on what kind of plant, whether it's marijuana or hemp.
Right.
And then so when you harvest it even later, though, if it's THC, it actually goes all the way to CBN, which is like what they call like the couch lock, feeling, or like so there's actually like, it's crazy to think about, just like you were saying with like the grapes, even like you have to pick them at the, right time
to get an effect. Because the effect changes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I was always taught
that there's too much of the CBG that hasn't been converted, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah. Or like, again, if you go too long, it'll end up converting even further. So like, that's why like you have to harvest at peak points. And so like, even with the grape picking, like how he went out and he can like, pick the color band, essentially what you got is with a microscope, and you actually check the trichomes, and like, or you can actually do physical, like, actually do
what we did is we'd take a scope, right? And we would look at the coloring of the trichomes. So each little bubble would, when it was crystal clear, we were like, nah, we gotta let it wait. And then we'd scope it again.
Until it's cloudy.
It was a milky white.
You don't want it too cloudy though. That's when it starts turning dark. And like I said, that's when you convert it too far.
The amber or the dark purple, right? And so we would always go and stagger the harvest. So we would, just pick the ripe ones, because a lot of them down below on the plant would not be ready yet. So, that's how we would do it. Scope it, milky white trichomes, and we did something similar in the field this year as well. But then it ended up, we really had to break it down to a test, a chemical test.
I mean, that's the best way, truthfully.
Right.
Well, we just have to do that because we're dealing with such the tolerance with the legality of it too. But
damn rules,
right?
Yeah, you don't want
them following the rules.
Don't want to harvest it.
Well, and it's what's the window on the harvest too. That played an important role for us this year. So like when for at least where we were growing, you have to get the county to come out and test it, and then you have a time window where you have to harvest it once.
It has to be. I thought it was only 10 days.
No,
I think it varies depending on maybe on.
For our county, it was 30 days. So once they took it,
right,
we had 30 days to cut it down. And then,
but a lot can happen in 30 days. And if you're, you have to go in for a retest, what I mean?
That takes you got to harvest at the right point.
Right. That window's tough to hit.
You also have to pre-book the walkthrough with them. So you have to do that 30 days in advance. And it's not a specific day. Actually, our county was quite
they're pretty
amiable.
Yeah.
I think they were great to work with.
Shout out to Lake County.
Crown jewel of the Emerald Triangle.
Yeah, there you go. Future hemp capital of the world.
I think Lake County has the possibility of becoming the next Napa of cannabis, being like a kind of sort of a mecca that encompasses Mendocino and
There's such a unique
Humboldt and
climate there
Trinity.
too. Like really just kind of
Yeah,
even like different from like going
our
towards like
perps were so
Sacramento or
crazy at the
I know
end.
some of those pictures you guys were taking. I definitely wish I could have came back up and smelled some of that
Our
stuff.
perps were incredible. And the clones that we took from the field, we went plant to plant to plant and smelled them and looked at them and the plants that grew the way we liked and all those characteristics, we took cuttings of those. So all of our clones have different profiles to them. Part of that goes back to my love of the tissue cloning and the whole cloning thing and stockpiling those and intermixing those based on the terpene profiles. Instead of doing it with breaking them down, it would be more like mixing them together through plant cells.
I mean, that's the best way to do it if you can express, like, essentially get the plant itself to express the genetics you want and the traits you want. You get a lot stronger effects that way versus, I mean, one of the things that we would do if we actually made distillate because of how, processed it is, and I can go into the differences between, processing that in another topic, but distillate is like one of those examples where you're saying you take these terpenes because you've processed it so far down, you've removed all the terpenes.
well, and I mean,
And so what you end up doing is you reintroduce the terpenes too. Like, so to make those cartridges that are made from distillate and stuff like that, those are reintroduced terpenes.
let's break that down a little bit for the people that are listening too. The difference between like so when you whether it's cannabis or whether it's the CBD hemp plant comes out of the field, then it goes to basically the extractor, and the first thing they do is turn it into like a crude, right? And that's
Yeah.
like the first step, right? But what you're talking about is a distillate. So what happens between like crude, which is basically just a big sludge of plant matter?
All right, if you want to go like deep
Might
into
as well dig into
all
it.
right,
That's
let's
what
dig a
we're
little
here
bit
for.
into it for now. I'll explain it. So most of the time, most extracts, essentially you do an extract first. And so the extraction process, you use different solvents, and the solvent takes the plant material, it dissolves all the oils into the solvent. And so that's why you get a mixture with the solvent and your oil. And then you remove the solvent, and then you have like you said, that's crude oil is what we call it. And so whether it's CBD crude oil or THC crude oil,
But that contains the most amount of cannabinoids, and basically that is
it
like
contains
full
essentially,
spectrum.
it's the whole plant extract. So it has everything still in it.
Right.
You can also press flour.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. So
Yeah,
you
like
could,
rosin.
that's another
Use
step
heat.
if you want to get into the rosin pressing, which is a solventless step, which
But
is you
then you
take it
lose a lot of-
essentially. Well, yeah, because you have to
There's a
heat.
lot of volatile.
Exactly. You use
essential
heat
oils.
with that process. So when we do our extracts for like, our batters and our diamonds and stuff like that, we're doing a cold process. So it's like negative 40 degrees Celsius. And we're like trying to process everything because of how volatile terpenes are. We're trying to extract out just the essentials of what we want. So our crude is our extracts. Like that's it. Like we don't go any further processing it because we just don't need to. We've extracted out the main essentials. We've done it in such a way that it's purified down to just that. And then we also filter it at the same time. So we do a cold filter, but we do everything at really like cold temperatures because that way we don't extract out all the other plant materials that we don't want. So like some of the stuff you don't want is like chlorophylls, tannins. So just this like gives the colors that you don't want. So we remove all that stuff along the way. And so that's like one way of extracts, which is like actually making like the high, that's the live resins and stuff like that, which is when you take the plant, you cut it, you essentially have the live plant and you extract that. And so live resins are like the main terpene profiles, like all the stuff that we have is all live resin. And it's all like the highest end, tastes and smells and stuff like that.
Let's just hold on for a second there. To break that down a little bit further, I just want to say, like, when we are referring to live resins, what we're talking about is harvesting the plant and then processing it within a specific amount of hours once it was cut down.
They normally
The
say
plant is
within
still
72 hours.
Is the longest, right? But like basically that's how long it takes for it to die out.
I mean, so most of the time, so when you process cannabis, you normally chop it and then you dry it. So that's consisting of hanging it for like, a week to 2 weeks or, however long it takes to dry it. And so that's, you can extract out that at that point. But since terpenes, which like we've been talking about, are volatile, which volatile means they come off really easy. They
The
evaporate.
gas off.
Yeah, they evaporate really easily, and like that's why when you open a jar of cannabis or a jar of extracts, it smells so strong. Those are the volatile terpenes coming off.
Right.
And so when you dry it, you lose a lot of those terpenes because they're evaporating into the environment. And so that's why when you do live resins, you trap all that stuff, you freeze it, and then you extract all of it right there. So you get all the smells and all that stuff is, the highest concentration of it. And so those are like, some of the high end pure extracts. And so, but what a lot of people do with, distillate, which is the other forms of like processing. So they take a lot of the byproducts, like the trim and whatever else that they're not going to sell and like not process to like, go to, a dispensary or whatever else. They'll extract that stuff out. And that's how they'll get a crude oil, which a lot of times isn't as, you don't have all the like terpene profiles of that normally, because that's all went with the, the buds that got sold. And so like when you extract out that stuff, you kind of get, a nasty oil. You get a black, disgusting looking oil.
Mm-hmm.
When you do it like in bulk and, you're just trying to get out as much as possible, you're going to get this nasty black oil. You remove all this stuff, then you have to distill it out essentially. Like there's like several more processes. Like, once you like remove the solvent, like I said, you extract out with the solvent or not. You remove the solvent, then you have like your crude oil. You have to decarboxylate it, which is like, to essentially heat it up.
Cook it.
Yeah, you heat it up because when you extract out, like, in the plant, it's THCA, which is tetrahydrocannabinol acid. And so when you smoke, cannabis, it decarboxylates it within that process. And so that's how you get THC. And so
Decarboxylate, fancy word for coke.
Yeah, essentially. You get carbon dioxide coming off of it.
Right. But and again, just, you dig it into the nitty gritty for the slow people and the cheap seats. When you smoke cannabis with a lighter and everything else, that instant that flame hits, cooks and decarboxylates the chemical instantly right there. When you're doing a solvent or you're doing an extract or something like that, or something that has to go into food, that cooking process has to be done independently, because you're not going to set it on fire with a freaking lighter the instant you consume it, right? Is that the right way?
Do you have to decarb CBD?
No. Actually, well, I mean, you can have the acid form, but for the most part,
when you decarb it, doesn't it can convert to THC? No. It's just that's more of a degradation thing. Oxidation.
Activation.
Integration. So, okay, cool. I just
y'all.
Yeah, so CBD again does not require the decarboxylation that you would get from converting THCA to THC. So just for
there we go. All right,
out there.
Back on the track.
All right, so
again,
now we have
I'm
our
representing the
No, I mean, it's good. It's really good because sometimes I mean, with my chemistry background and the background I have, I don't really use layman's terms. I don't dumb things down.
It's all right.
And it's not the best way to explain things to people who really don't know this information. So I get it.
People can Google it. Don't worry.
Hey man, that's the whole point of us. We're not supposed to we're supposed to be Google for them.
Yeah, right. That's they're listeners. Well, they don't have to Google. But no, that's a beautiful thing about this plant. Whether it's CBD, whether it's THC, whatever it is, like there's so many layers and levels of just nuance to the effects, to the capabilities, to the potential of it. You know what I mean? Like we're literally sitting here talking, and I see your notebook. You got a chemical kind of sketch thing that's going on over there. I don't know exactly what that means, but I've seen that before. I know what that is. Like we're talking about this stuff on a microscopic level because that's the potential of the fucking plant. You know what I mean? Like that's just the mind-blowing part of it. Anyways, continue.
So once you have it to the point, like you said, you have your crude oil, you decarboxylate it, and then you can actually distill it at that point. So, I mean, a lot of times I talk about on the THC side of things because that's where I have a lot of my backgrounds, where I've done most of my research and my actual work in general. But so once you have the distillation process, again, like think about how many times it's like already been heated up. So the first thing is like when you extract it, a lot of the ways when you're extracting like crude oils, you don't really care too much about everything. So you're heating it up a lot of times. So the first thing, to remove the solvent, you heat it up. So to get your solvent off, you already heated it up once.
Right.
Then you got to heat it up a shit ton to decarboxylate
Every time
it.
you heat it up, it changes it.
Exactly. So think
Changes
about
the
all the stuff
chemical
that has already been like
compositions.
removed and changed
Right.
because
Right.
you're processing it. And so once you get to distillation, you heat it up, like you do 2 passes normally. And the first pass is to remove terpenes.
in vape carts. And
Yeah,
stuff like
exactly. Vape carts are pretty much all distillate because, again, they're trying to get the highest purity and something that's workable with too.
that. Right.
So,
And by
Um,
workable, you mean just a big jug that you can pour into another big jug and then.
well,
put
no,
those
just to get
into-
even the
And I
cart
think-
to get it into the cartridges is what's the problem a lot of times. That's not like
Right,
the
'cause
easiest
it has
way.
to burn or vape at a certain temperature. It's got to be very manufactured. And one of the things that I've heard from many friends and
Hey,
That's right.
no, see.
no whispering. In
Hey, if you want to
class.
talk about that stuff, it's like when they started adding vitamin E acetate to
Oh,
that started getting
right.
people sick.
Well, that's a-
so that's where again they were trying to
Right,
make
the
it
cheap way.
workable.
I think that's the next podcast topic. Is
Oh, we can definitely go
some-
into
some
stuff
sort of-
like that.
Something about the black market and the bullshit, like scary shit that goes on there, and it's screwing everything up for the.
Oh,
legal
we used to
market.
hear stories about people who were like, "Oh, it doesn't matter, just
Yeah.
Oh no, I've
uh,
totally have seen it even on the legal side. So
indicas. Just throw a sativa sticker on it. It's fine. No one gives a shit."
yeah, I've seen some shit.
But basically, what and I've heard this from multiple people where they talk about vape cartridges, right? And they're like, it's just not the same, right?
It's not. It's so
It's
processed.
supposed to be
It's
just as
so
strong. It's supposed
processed.
to be a hyper concentrated version of THC, but it's just not the same experience that you would have if you're doing a full spectrum, ice or dab, or if you're doing
It's
an
just
actual
straight
just bud.
convenience. It's the
No,
course-
that's
the
all it
course
comes
light
down to,
of
But that's
weed.
convenience.
because all those terpenes, all those cannabinoids,
They've been
all
removed.
that entourage effect is gone, right? So it is just a high. It's not the high. It's not a marijuana high. It's not an effect high. It's not going to do anything else. It's just there to trigger whatever sensors in your head. You know what I'm saying? But it's a very hollow
It's
experience.
like the pop off vodka of vodkas. You know what I mean? It's
Well,
like
and
the
now we're
cheapest.
seeing like
So, it
when we were
definitely
talking
is.
to extractors, they were talking about the isolating down to terpenes, like just actually extracting just for terpenes. And what they were saying is that there's cart manufacturers that are trying to mix that back in.
It is no
Yeah.
okay. So that's a huge market, and that's something I don't want to talk too much about because that's something I want to take over myself.
no,
No,
there's
but,
companies
Terp
called like
Baron.
terps, that just
well, there's like
have
there's True Terpenes.
isolated
Like True Terpenes is like a company I've worked with, and
Yeah, True
they
Terps.
they have like amazing products. But again, there's like a lot of those terpenes are not cannabis derived. So a
Right.
huge thing is, so when you, again, after you've distilled it out, which you do a couple times, first thing you do is distill it out to remove the terpenes, which they just smell like shit when you do it. I'm not gonna lie. Once you get to that point, you just burnt everything so bad that like some of the stuff that comes off of like the first pass is so horrible. And this is because you processed it and heated up so much. It's just like it's not the same. And so either way, you do the first pass, which is to remove a lighter, volatile molecules, and then you do the second pass, which is like, your gold pass, which is where you actually get your distillate. And just think about how much I've just already said. How long has it gone from the freaking growing the plant to just even get it to distillate? Like it's
Right,
heated up
right.
several times. It's ran through like solvents.
Right.
It's just not good. Like I've processed this stuff and I smoke cartridges and I've never been a fan. And then so the whole thing is at that point you have no flavor in it. You have nothing. It's just THC and maybe like a small portion because you're trying to get it to 85 to 90% or higher. And so you have a small portion of whatever else you couldn't separate.
Right.
And it's really hard. Like, I mean, even some of the top extractors, like you can't separate everything. So like getting it up to
Right,
like
and that isn't the best stuff that's left over anyways. That's the
like at that point
that you just couldn't scrape off the bottom of the
it's whatever was azotropic and just stuck to the
right.
It's just stuck to the THC still. But so then you have to go, and to make these cartridges, what they do is they add in terpenes. They add them back because that's where
Right.
the flavor and the smell, and
Right.
it also makes it so you can work with it a little better. But again, so this is where like the big thing is for the push of the entourage effect is to try to reintroduce real cannabis terpenes back into them, to call them live resins, because most of the time to extract high terpene extracts are all made from live resins. So people are, in a market right now trying to make terpenes just to add them back in to distillate. So that way you can still create a better effect. And so that's part of, the industry right now is trying to do that. But for me to be like, as an extractor or chemist and have seen all the different ways of doing this, it's like, it's the most processed. I love one of the terms that has been thrown around pretty loosely, but they call it the hot dog water of extracts.
Yikes.
Jeez, that just sounds delicious.
Exactly.
Yikes.
So, I mean, I don't push for cartridges at all. I mean, I hate them.
Who makes hot dogs with water, boiling them in water?
A lot of people.
That's commercially serve them. Yeah, you just boil them.
Yeah.
That's the worst way.
Well,
exactly. It's disgusting no matter what.
Hot dog cart's going to have like boiled hot dogs.
That's like,
that's how they can keep them hot and not like developing botulism for hours while they wait for people to buy the hot dog.
It just sounds
horrible. I get it. It's just you're not convincing me.
Well, it's not supposed to be good.
It's like
hot dog water it's like bong water. You don't want to drink that.
You don't make it into a soup. You don't throw vegetables and potatoes.
That would just be absolutely disgusting.
I seen like somebody post like a meme or some shit online, and it was like somebody like trying to fuck with people when they took all the hot dog water and they froze them into ice cubes.
Oh.
Like, yeah, if somebody I don't like comes over, I'm gonna give them these. So
wait a minute. So I guess I'm associating the flavor of why are we talking about this? But I guess why
every episode we end up with food talk somehow.
Hot dog water
is hot dog water
was always with Oscar Mayer wieners, which are the worst hot dogs. Like
dude, hot dogs are just worse.
What? Hey! Hot dogs are a national fucking treasure. All right.
That's just ripped off from fucking Germany and shit, or Switzerland. Actually, societies for years and years and years, like everywhere, have been packing meat that's ground up into some kind of a casing, which is essentially like intestine or some shit, right? So,
but I think when we're talking about hot dog, it's almost like you're talking about bologna. Like we're not talking about.
There
German
are bologna
sausages,
hot dogs. That's what I'm saying.
You know what I mean?
And those bologna hot dogs were distinctively made from like Oscar Mayer, right? And they were made prepared in boiling water. So that boiling water is the bottom of the barrel of hot dog water. I'm saying, like, let's say you had a kielbasa from the deli, freshly ground.
At the bar, we have really good hot dogs. Really good. You do, right? You've had them. Like,
yeah, they're great.
Really good.
They're great.
I still wouldn't drink that water.
Why are you cooking it with water? Damn it!
Hey, why are people making distillate?
No, we don't. No, we don't actually. We grill, but
for me, I think there's a place for these products, these manufactured or rather distilled products or concentrated products. Let's say, right? And if you look at the concentrates that you can make from cannabis, you have press,
rosin.
You have rosin press, you have hash, you have keef, and we were looking at keef, CBD keef, with these big barrels that freeze, and tumble, and it all breaks off.
Have you seen the one? Is that the ones with the CO2 at it?
Right. We met the designers and the builders of it, and we're
live resin frozen extract or something like that.
There's so many benefits because of what you're talking about, the live resin, number one, and that's the biggest thing, is getting that broad terpene profile, right? The spectrum that we want. Number two is that the machine, it was so awesome because it helped us to process the field faster, instead of having to involve multiple other players to be able to do their part, right? Somebody to take it somewhere and keep it cool or frozen or whatever until it got separated from the plant, which would be to the processor at that point, right? So for us, that's a very cool machine, and we're still weighing it out because it's like you need so many machines for so many acres, right? Anyways, machines, there's tons of really cool machines that we like.
Oh yeah, I couldn't get through my work without them.
Right, but to your point, I think there's a place for these extracts and for these concentrates, and it's these different forms produce different effects. And I feel that it's good for the consumer to know that from the old days, from this hand rubbed tar hash to the hammer pounded uh, Moroccan stuff, or just powdered keef, if you can even find powdered keef now on the market. Those types of things produce different effects. Um, and so I think part of the experience of cannabis is to actually explore it a little bit and to try these different concentrates and see what works for you.
Well, and also, I mean, understand what you're putting in your body. You know what I'm saying?
That's a
Like,
huge thing.
right, especially with the CBD stuff that's out there these days. You know what I mean? Again,
Right. It's
going back, there's a lot of
process.
hyper processed THC free
All
stuff.
of it's so
It's
processed.
a lot of full spectrum things that are on the market. You know what I mean? Now you kind of you understand what the difference is. You know what I'm saying? If you're taking CBD specifically for an ailment and you're finding that it's not working as expected, or maybe it's hit or miss, or not giving you any sort of results or whatever, like try a full spectrum versus a THC free. You know what I'm saying? Look for formulated products that are on the market, or things that are developed to target certain symptoms specifically, not just a general CBD oil.
Yeah,
You
and
know what I
figure
mean?
out the vessel too that works for you. Some people smoking is good. For a lot of people, smoking doesn't work.
I mean, there's
it's like it's not
topicals, there's edibles,
edibles,
there's
right?
lotions, there's
Exactly. So
tinctures, teas,
So there's
acne.
Yeah.
tons of different ways to consume cannabis in a safe manner, and people just need to kind of try it out and see what works for them. And the fortunate thing is, don't worry. If you drink some tea, you're not going to freak out or like immediately go insane and or have to call the hospital or anything like that. It's just, it may not be to your palate. I'll give you that. But
Right.
a cream, you try a cream, it shouldn't burn your skin off. And again, I can't vouch for cream makers, but you know what I'm saying? Like if it's just
Like
oil
make sure you
that's
try
derived
it
from the
too.
plant and done in the correct way, then you shouldn't have a problem. You shouldn't have any side effects. Like if it was oil, some crazy guys didn't know what they were doing and were
I mean, if
But
they
see,
didn't balance the
it-
pH right, and you got something that's too basic, so one of the big things about making lotions is balancing pH and then keeping the viscosity right.
there's an interesting use case that's flipped to the other side though. In some cases, like for example, my wife, let's say she wanted to do a CBD
Right.
topical, right? We've tried some that are fairly this is, we don't have a topical on the market or anything like that, so we're trying some stuff out, and it was a face cream from a fairly reliable person. I'm not going to say who it was or whatever, and she broke out, and it's because even though,
And that was the expensive one too.
right, and it was it was a quality one, but it was also a full spectrum one. And so one of the next things that we want to try with her is we want to try a THC free or distillated down, because
I thought it was the oils that it was made from.
right.
Like,
But
mean, so
at that point,
topicals
you
have to have a
can
carrier,
control,
so it's a lot of
right,
times
their
that-
carrier oils were, I think there was carnauba and honey and coconut and right. And some people don't react well with coconut either. I don't know why, but everybody's different, and beeswax is supposed to be super breathable and has all these like healing properties to it. Aloe, same thing. And somebody somewhere will probably react weird to it. Be like, oh, allergic to aloe.
I mean, that's where personalized medicine comes in, knowing yourself.
Right.
Again, if you need to, if you are on a lot of medications or something like that, talk to your doctor about, possibly trying out something new before you just jump into it, because you could have some adverse effects.
Right, but the odds are, thankfully, that's not the case. Usually,
For the majority,
for the
no.
majority, we're talking the vast majority of people. Again, with endocannabinoid systems in their body, they don't have some other deficiency or allergic reaction, then that complicates something else, especially if you're taking a medicine.
Sure, but it's like,
that's where it's
think about it like
important.
vitamins or things like that.
Right. I
You
think
know
it's
what
a
I'm
lot
saying?
more
If
like
you,
that, because
yeah,
you
if you
either
sat there
get
and just ate 10,000 milligrams of vitamin C, your body's gonna like
I
break
mean,
out in
if you drink too
hives.
much water, you can die. So
Right. But at the same time, your body
Right.
needs like certain things. Salt. Your body won't survive without salt. You know what I'm saying? You got to have it, but at the same time, you got to be wary of how much you're consuming and everything else, or that can lead to adverse health effects. What we're talking about is, no different than that. It's part of nature. It's what we're like designed to consume. We can scientifically prove this with what is already known about the human body and what's in there. Here's an item that can fill that purpose, but just like sugar, careful what you eat and how much of it you eat, and be wary of what goes down the pipe.
Moderation is the key.
speaking of pipe,
Where's it at? Gentlemen, so is that's Entourage, eh?
yeah, that was pretty much
That's,
good.
our Entourage episode.
I think that's a good discussion. I think people out there can add and comment, and we can discuss more
Well, and
about what they feel the entourage effect really is, and if it's a thing, if we're all full of shit, or
well, and,
I mean, I'll
also,
definitely back that it's a thing. I don't.
of course it is. Of course it is. I'm
But
just saying, like,
if
other people
anybody
may
has
not think it's a
questions,
thing, and
yeah, if anybody has questions, throw them in the comments.
Yeah,
and we
definitely
want to
ask some
we read all of
questions.
those. We happily like answer some serious questions, no trolls, but on the air.
I
And,
mean, maybe even some trolls.
yeah, why not?
but you know what? Seriously, like, there's a lot of smart people out there, and a lot of more educated people than all of us
Oh, yeah.
combined. And
We're actually working on getting a few of those people on the podcast
Right,
with us. It's going to be
right.
awesome.
Definitely.
we know
Stay
some
tuned for that.
people, and we're hoping that they'd be willing to have these candid discussions with us. We'll see.
Digging into the
Um,
hot topics,
But yeah.
serving it up fresh.
Oh, RJ, you're so perfect for this.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in for another
He
episode
just pops off with
of the
this shit.
Contact
That's
Buzz
perfect.
podcast. It's where you go when you want to be in the know. My name is RJ, and as always, I got my friend Guillermo.
Man, he's a
And
poet. And he didn't
Chris.
even know it.
Guillermo from Acme Tea. Tell me what's coming down the pipe there, buddy, with Acme. What do we got going on?
Well, we have another tea blend that is going to be added to our initial release. I think we were really going to go with 6, but by popular demand, it seems like this 7th one is going to manifest.
I
which
actually
I'm
got
excited
some good feedback today on hemp potion number 19 too.
Yeah.
So
Hemp potion number 19.
hemp
Right.
potion.
It's literally pure hemp biomass from the field, ground to a nice particulate size. And yeah, it's really to help with sleep. But I think there's these other botanicals I'm really interested in mixing with it, and really trying to come up with this blend that just becomes very nice and light and easy to drink right before bed. In all honesty, the just pure hemp biomass, I mean, it tastes a little akin to like mowing a golf course, scooping the mass out of the
I mean, a
back of the
really
bag of
nice
the
golf
mower.
course, though.
Totally,
like,
dude. Like one of those
manicured
Irish
golf
ones
course.
with the really fine grass hairs.
Yeah.
But
like imported grass golf course.
yeah, it's
Country
because
club.
there's still, again, there's chlorophyll in the leaf and whatnot. We also didn't want to fully blast people right out of the gates with like just pure flower ground up. You know what I mean? We wanted to sort of experiment, and I think we've got a nice mix because the leaf does add a earthiness to it, which we don't want to necessarily always forget about. But I feel that people who are just trying it out may go, "Holy crap, this is insanely not good."
Well, actually, it
it's-
was Chris and Jan, and Chris took his with sugar. Jan liked it straight.
They're hard. They're so hard. Let me just tell you, the hardest husband and wife I've ever met, and by hard I mean just strong people, like they could be Marines. They're literally like farm Marines.
Run circles around both of us,
dude,
like just frankly,
up
hands down.
hills, lifting shit, like just working labor straight for days. I remember one time I came up to Jen and she was, I don't even know if she had a hammer. No, she had a rock or something. And she was literally,
Oh, with the urea.
yeah, she was literally breaking down this. The moisture had gotten into a bag of urea,
For nitrogen.
which breaks down in nitrogen when you plant it into the field, for hay and stuff. And so it got wet like concrete, right, and just hardened up. Well, hardened up to like concrete status, basically. And she went out there and she was like, I need a little bit of nitrogen over here. So she went over there to the barn and just started bashing away for a minute, dude. And I was like, do you want me to help you? You need help? She's like,
Didn't we
no.
even have a fresh bag that we had just brought back from the supply?
Totally. We had a
of just-
fresh freaking bag for the field.
She's like, nope, we're gonna use
Well,
the
I mean,
old
it
shit.
had to be used. Had to be used.
And
That's the way to do
dude,
it.
like on
I would
purpose.
not. I would
and
drug that to the trash can.
I disagree with that. No, it could still be used. It's just,
Gotta put some
like,
work in.
yeah, they're not afraid to work, but not only that, they're really, really smart, and they have been on this property for so long that they just know it. They can feel things about
They've
it.
been
like,
absolutely invaluable too with our cultivation projects and stuff like that.
oh yeah, I mean, you go
Couldn't have
from
done it
indoor
without 'em.
growing to outdoor growing, and then you go to like acres and acres of outdoor growing. Then it's it's just a different game. Every one of those games is just another level. But it's much different than aquaponics or deep water culture or any, what I'm saying, or what we're talking about, even outdoor like composting and all that. Imagine composting for 10 acres. You know what I'm saying? How many goats or how many cows would you need to compost that much to nutrify that big of a space? That's what I'm saying. Like, it's just a different game.
I mean, that's a whole topic in itself. We can go deep into
Oh,
cultivation.
It's
Cultivation. Coming up on a future
It's-
episode of the Contact Buzz. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, the Contact Buzz. We're getting ready to wrap it up here. As always, you guys, you can find everybody here on the social medias. Acme Tea, Guillermo and myself over at Acme. It's at Acme Tea on the Instagram. California Terpene Extracts is just California Terpenes, I think, on Instagram or something like that.
Yeah, I believe it's just California terpene. That's all they let me do.
And what do you guys got going on right now?
We're actually gonna be making clothing soon, jackets and hats and stuff.
Is it all hemp?
That's a huge thing. That's what would be cool. I can look into that.
I have some distributors from Alibaba that you may want to look at.
Of course, it'd be Alibaba.
Of
I don't know
course.
if I want to order from China right now.
Too soon.
Too soon.
Just leave them in the
Jeez.
sun for a bit.
Ouch.
It'll kill whatever's on there.
Well, the
Um,
2-week try
trip over.
right. The
Let's put a
voyage
tag on it. It
is
says,
going
please
to
wash before use.
Right? Yeah, it's just California terpene.
California
what's
Terpene on
trippy is that
Instagram.
like there's a bunch of people who already have the coronavirus all over the world, and they're
Oh,
like,
I
they're
guess-
quarantined
Orange
in
County-
San Diego,
Don't listen to the
and
panic.
they're-
Don't
Orange
listen to the
County is supposed to
panic.
say a bunch of like they're saying it's gonna get out no matter what. Pretty much. I'm like, whatever, bro.
It's a
Don't
zombie
listen. Don't
virus.
listen to the report that I saw that said that this has officially become a pandemic because there's thousands of cases that they can't pinpoint where they came from now.
It's because they changed the way that they like diagnose it or some shit. I don't know what the fuck it was, but who cares?
Yeah, really. You guys are your stuff's on the shelves up. You said you were Ventura area kind of thing.
Yeah, local collective, and then in San Fernando Valley, like Reseda area.
Nice. So if you guys are in that area, definitely swoop by California Terpene Extracts and look for Acme Tea coming soon. Not sure when this podcast is going to be released, but coming somewhere around that. All right. Yeah, we'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.
Peace.
Late.